Joining me now is Iltija Mufti, the latest political daughter in a way to rise, the daughter of former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti and the candidate from Bijbehara in this elections in Jammu and Kashmir. Appreciate your joining us, Iltija. You're making your political debut in an election where your mother has chosen to opt out, saying she doesn't want to be part of an election so long as Article 370 is not in place. So you're contesting, but your mother is not. How do we read that?
Yes. I mean, first of all, you have to disassociate us in the sense that my mother is her own person and I'm my own person. And frankly, you know, I had a chat with my mother as well about not wanting to contest because a lot of party leaders and party workers wanted her to contest. But I think Miss Mehbooba Mufti feels very emotional, you know, about the fact that she cannot imagine stepping into the same assembly because it was a completely different assembly when she was in it last. You know, we had a semi-autonomous status. Jammu Kashmir had its own flag. It had residuary powers. It had its own constitution. So that's not a decision that anybody can impose upon her. And I think she and me, we are very different individuals. Just because I am her daughter does not mean that we're cut from the same cloth.
But the fact is,
so, it's not necessary for us.
No, it's not. So are you saying, no, so are you saying on Article 370, you have a very different opinion to your mother? You believe, because the fact is, the government of India has made it clear there's no question of going back on Article 370. It's gone.
Rajdeep, we feel very strongly about, you know, the illegal abrogation of Article 370. And let me make one thing very clear. Just because I am fighting this election does not mean that by any stretch of the imagination, I endorse the illegal abrogation of Article 370. But I want to make one thing very clear. We are not going to cede any democratic space to the BJP or its proxies. Just because I am contesting does not mean that I endorse their decision of illegally abrogating Article 370. And in fact, if you remember 5 years ago when we spoke for the first time, you know, for your channel, I was very vociferous about my opposition, you know, to the whole, not just about the manner in which it was done in stealth, but also, you know, the entire process of abrogating it. They had no right to abrogate it. They had no mandate and it was done illegally. So my contesting this election by no means does it mean that I endorse this decision. In fact, I'm going to go into the floor of the assembly, God willingly, inshallah, and I'm going to speak about this. But just as I have in the past 5 years.
But Iltija, the fact is that this election also seems to be a battle for relevance for the PDP. The National Conference has gone ahead, tied up with the Congress. The BJP is hoping to dominate the Jammu region. Where does this leave the PDP at the moment? The PDP seems to be squeezed out. The battle seems to be NC Congress versus BJP.
Rajdeep, you have to understand that in the past 5 years, the reason why PDP witnessed a mass exodus of sorts was because it was orchestrated and it was done at the behest of Delhi. You know, they understood that Miss Mehbooba Mufti, unlike other regional parties and heads in Kashmir, was not pliable and she was not going to compromise on her stand. And because of this, an entire split was orchestrated in the party. ED, CBI, name any of the agencies, and they were deployed. And people in our party were forced, they were blackmailed, they were intimidated, and they were made to leave. Having said that, of course, we're going through a very rough patch. And you know, when you introduced me at the beginning of your show, I found it a little ironic and amusing because the whole media is painting this as sort of like a daughter rise. It's not, Rajdeep. I am entering politics at a time when it is tumultuous, not just for the people of Jammu and Kashmir, but also for the People's Democratic Party. I am unlike any other, you know, political family member where sort of like, you know, there's a crown that's been put on my head. I am actually inheriting a party that stands at its weakest right now. But having said that, we will bounce back. And even if you look at our performance in the parliament, it was quite incredible for a party that's witnessed such a mass exodus. But we are going to keep fighting. Just because other parties are, you know, getting together and trying to push us in one corner does not mean that we're going to cede our space or give up, you know, our idea or vision of the Jammu and Kashmir as my grandfather, Marhum Mufti Muhammad Sayyid Saab, had envisaged.
No, but the fact is somewhere the PDP has in the past been branded by the BJP as being pro-militant. Now you've got a situation where your PDP is part of the India Alliance,
the NC. Branded by the BJP as? Rajdeep,
Yes.
let me ask you, what does their spokesperson keep calling you? You know the kind of vile language, you know the kind of profanities they use against their political opponents. They brush us all with the same, they paint us all with the same brush. So if you expect me to take what they say seriously, I'm not going to do that.
No, but
I don't take any of their criticism or even opinion seriously.
No, but ma'am, the point I'm raising is that Mehbooba Mufti ji, Omar Abdullah, Farooq Abdullah were all part of the India alliance. Now we seem to find the India alliance splintering in Jammu and Kashmir during these elections. The NC and Congress, as I said, coming together, the PDP isolated. Do you all feel isolated? Is this now a do or die battle for the Mufti family, a party started by your grandfather who ironically contested from Bij Bihara all those years ago?
Rajdeep, you understand politics better than me. In politics, nothing is permanent. You know, like Marx says, it's a circulation of elites. Somebody who's in opposition for a term then comes into power in the next term. So whatever you see here is all very temporary. And you spoke about how the PDP is being cornered. I agree with you. I don't know why that's being done. But of course, that is true to a certain extent. But that is why I'm entering politics right now. Because I feel that my mother needs me not just because I am her daughter, but she needs me as the party president, and I am going to work like any ordinary PDP karyakarta, like any other ordinary PDP worker, and I'm going to take the party back to where it was. Because let's not forget, PDP is the only party in the history of Jammu and Kashmir that became a feasible, viable, acceptable, legitimate alternative to the National Conference. And this was something that was done by my grandfather and my mother, and it took decades. And so this is what I have in mind. I'm not coming in at a time when everything is hunky-dory and they're coming and they're anointing me as her political heir and I have this crown on my head. It's not like that at all. But does that mean I'm going to give up? Certainly not. I'm going to keep fighting for my grandfather's party. It's not just his party. It's thousands and lakhs of our workers who believe in the vision of People's Democratic Party for a peaceful Jammu and Kashmir, for a Jammu and Kashmir where you have peace with dignity, where you have dialogue, reconciliation with all stakeholders for a larger solution of the problem.
You know, what for you then is this election about? You say peace with dignity, but this is the first election after 10 years. This is the first election post the effective abrogation of Article 370. What is this election, according to you, in Jammu and Kashmir all about?
Well, I think first of all, you know, I was glad that this election was called because for the past over 6 years now, people have not had their representatives. Forget about having their representatives. You know that Kashmir has been lying in sort of like a limbo, Jammu and Kashmir. Democracies, it's not just democracy that's suspended, even your fundamental rights, the right to speak. Now, as an MLA, as somebody who, inshallah, is going to go into the assembly, I want to articulate the grievances of our people. And right now, the immediate priority for me right now is to secure them in the sense that give them a sense of safety. Because you see, Rajdeep, the people of Jammu and Kashmir for the past 5 years, different farmans and orders and decrees are issued from thousands of kilometers away from people in Delhi who have absolutely no stake here. And you have an LG here who's sitting on our heads and he behaves like a viceroy. He has no political accountability, yet he behaves as the political executive. There's a deep fear amongst the people of Jammu and Kashmir that their resources, their land, their jobs, everything is being outsourced. And you know, there's a sense that even their religion is under threat, you know, from the government of India. So I want to give them not just a sense of safety, but also a sense of dignity, a sense of security.
You know, but how will you respond to those who will say that at the end of the day, your entry into politics only confirms what the BJP and the Prime Minister have been saying, that the Valley parties, NC and PDP are essentially party of dynasties. The Muftis on one side, the Abdullahs on the other.
So Chirag Paswan is not a dynast. Chirag Paswan is not a dynast. Anurag Thakur is not a dynast. You know, Jagan Reddy, who was their alliance partner, he's not a dynast. So you have a problem with dynasts only when they're against you. I'm pretty sure tomorrow, God forbid, I have no plans of joining BJP, but if any of these parties had an alliance with the BJP, everything would be hunky-dory. You see, anything and everything that the BJP says has to be seen through the prism of, you know, their own strategic interests of what suits them. What is not convenient, then you're very conveniently dubbed as a family party. But let me tell you, Mufti Sahab and Mehbooba ji have been unlike any political party which is seen as to be run by a family. If you see Mufti Sahab, my grandfather struggled for decades, Rajdeep. I can literally count on my fingers the number of elections he won. It was only when my mother, when Miss Mehbooba Mufti entered politics, that he got a chance to be the chief minister, which was his dream. It was his dream for a purpose, because he wanted to see a happy, a peaceful Jammu and Kashmir. So we are unlike any other political families, and this is not something that I even need to prove to the BJP. But please explain to me, why don't they have a problem with Chirag Paswan? Why don't they have a problem with Anurag Thakur? Why don't they have a problem with other political families, with the Badals, who until recently were their allies? Why do they just have a problem with us? Is it because we're Muslims?
No,
is it because they're Muslims? Is it because I'm from a Muslim majority state?
That's a contentious, provocative statement that you've just made. The irony is, of course, that Mufti Saab tied up with the BJP, tied up with Narendra Modi exactly a decade ago. The wheel has come full circle.
For a purpose, Rajdeep. He tied up with Modi ji for a purpose, for a reason. कहते हैं ना, when you take a decision, it's your intention, it's your niyat which matters. If Mufti Sahab wanted to usurp a seat, a throne, which everybody projects that we were sort of like power hungry, he would have gone with the Congress. The reason being, the reason why they allied with the BJP was because he thought that if Vajpayee ji could be moderated, so could Modi ji. But unfortunately, that did not happen. He thought that he could moderate Modi ji if a coalition was formed between BJP and a Muslim regional party in Kashmir. But that didn't happen. But that doesn't mean that his intention was wrong. Otherwise, if he just wanted power, Rajdeep, he could have even allied with the Congress.
Am I right, though, to say that post-elections you hope to craft a coalition that will include NC and the Congress? Is the BJP the party now that you will try and keep away the Gupkar alliance that you had formed after Article 370 was abrogated? Is it still in shape? Is the India alliance still in place?
On one hand,
are you very clear that the BJP is your enemy number one? Or is the NC Congress your enemy number one?
Well, on one hand, your first two questions was about how PDP is being written off and we have no scope or space in the alliance. And now you're asking me a question which is completely like diametrically opposite.
No, if you get 4 or 5 seats, who will you align with?
When we began the interview...
No, who will you align with? If post-election you have 4 or 5 seats, who will you align with?
That's a question that is best directed at Miss Mehbooba Mufti, because you are forgetting I'm a very small purza in PDP. I am not somebody who's going to take such important, crucial decisions. But obviously, if it comes to an alliance, we would want to support. We are not going to...
Yeah, you're not going to support the BJP, right?
Yeah.
No question of supporting the BJP.
Of course not, Rajdeep. Of course not. But this is a question which is best directed at Miss Mehbooba Mufti. But I find it quite amusing that on one hand, you're writing us off, and on the other hand, you're making us to be these kingmakers, which of course I hope that we are going to be, because at the end of the day, an alliance is, about those 5-6 seats and who that party decides to support.
Okay. So you hope to be kingmaker or queenmaker after this election. We look forward, though, to your political debut. What's the most difficult thing to make this transition now to becoming a full-time politician, ma'am?
Oh my God, I don't know where to begin from. It's been incredible. It's been an incredible experience, but I wasn't expecting to do this. I didn't think that my life would, sort of like culminate here. And the reason why I really wanted to speak to you was because I felt that my life has come full circle. If you remember 5 years ago, it was your show that I got on for the first time, and everybody kind of like noticed when I spoke at your conclave. So I thought it was befitting to be here. But I think all of it is very overwhelming. I'm not coming in at a time where everything is hunky-dory in Kashmir. We're going through a very turbulent period where there's been a sense of siege. There's a sense of despondency, despair. And to kind of like dispel that is going to be incredibly hard. Like, how do you give people the power to hope, the audacity of hope? How do you tell them to hope for a better future when you know that there's a government sitting in Delhi that is going to take decisions repeatedly every day that wants to disinherit, dispossess and disempower the people of Jammu and Kashmir? So for me, that really essentially is the biggest challenge that, amongst like whatever is happening here in this atmosphere of despondency, how do I give my people hope? How do I, be a positive influence, a positive force, to kind of like reckon with?
Well, either way, we'll look at your campaign very, very closely. It's interesting that you've chosen to take the plunge in this big election in Jammu and Kashmir. We wish you well, as we wish all the candidates who choose to contest elections. May that democratic spirit flower in the Kashmir Valley. Thank you very much, Iltija Mufti, for joining me here on the news today.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll watch those elections in Jammu and Kashmir closely.